This is Premium Times Election Special, live on our Facebook and YouTube platforms, Monday to Friday at 4 to 5 p.m.
I have my PC 200% and I'm also canvassing for PVC. If you see this face, every day I tell people about PVC.
I am expecting a competent and a focused leader to be our president. I'm preparing. My family is preparing. Every individual is preparing.
I campaign anywhere I go. I have my candidates.
The 2023 general elections is around the corner. Do you have your PVC, and how prepared are you for the election? These are the questions we ask Abuja residents. I am Sister Fadari for Premium Times. Have you collected your PVC? Do you have a...
Of course, yes.
Of course.
Why should I not have it? I have it. Why should I not have it? It's my present right.
I have.
By the grace of God.
I have my PVC 200% and I'm also canvassing for PVC. If you see this face, every day I tell people about PVC. For the new Nigeria we believe in.
So what are you doing right now to prepare for the general election?
The only thing I'm doing as a president and encourage other Nigerians, I don't care who. I'm not an Igbo man. I'm from Akwa Ibom State. I don't care who is the president of this country. But if you look at the abundant resources of this country, I am expecting a competent and a focused leader to be our president, so that at least you and I can enjoy light. You and I can enjoy free education for our children. At least commodities and every other thing should be as it is in other countries.
I've been active in politics even before coming to Abuja. So, in fact, I campaign anywhere I go. I have my candidates.
I'm preparing. My family is preparing. Every individual is preparing. They want a change in Nigeria. God is going to bring a change, not you bringing a change. All you have to pray to God, give us your leader. We need your leader. Give us a right leader. A leader that will care for the poor, the masses, that will care for people.
The election, I'm fully prepared. I'm prepared. My community has great awareness for them.
I'm prepared. I'm going like me. I'm going to boot campaign, market to market sensitization. I'm going to women, rural area. Politics is local. It's not people that are shouting on social media. It's not all the people that are on the street that are shouting. Go to those women in the village. They are the ones that will come out that day and vote. So I'm going to boot for sensitization. I'm also encouraging people now that the PVC is already out. Those that registered the last batch by June is already out by this November. So go to your local government, stay there until they get to your PVC.
As a people, we are rising up to the occasion by sensitizing our people to get their permanent voters card PVC, so that they can elect, decide to employ whosoever they want to employ, that will lead Nigeria, that will lead our various states to the...
Good evening and welcome to today's edition of Premium Times Election Special, where we discuss issues around the 2023 general elections. My name is BC Abidoye, and in this edition, we'll be assessing INEC's preparedness from the lens of observer groups. Our guests today are Dr. Tobi Oluwatola, the Executive Director of Center for Journalism, Innovation and Development, CJID, and Mr. Peter McMahon, a foreign election observer with the Democratic Union of Africa. Welcome, sirs, to this program.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So the election, polls will open across the country in a matter of hours. So, Mr. Dr. Oluwatobi, I will like you to take the first question, which is, you will recall that in 2015 and 2019, the polls were postponed, shifted just hours before they opened. Do you have any fear that such a development may happen again in this election? And how will you assess the general preparation by the Electoral Commission for this process this time around?
Thank you very much. So I would say that we don't expect that to happen this time around, even though there has been, there have been suspicions, and even someone as noble as the great El Rufai had mentioned that there were elements in the Aso Rock who were trying to postpone elections and thereby appoint an interim government. But all indications, at least from the electoral body itself, INEC was this week, met with the Federal Executive Council, I believe, met with security services, met with CBN as well as NNPC, and deployments have already happened in all the states. The electoral materials are already in all the states, as we are aware. We have deployed observers to 32 states right now, and we're expecting to get some definitive field pre-election reports tonight, which we'll publish tonight. And but all the indications that we're getting so far tell us that that preparations are in top gear for elections. INEC also published the final voters registration numbers, and we're expecting 87 million voters have collected their PVCs. That's encouraging, because that's even the collection rate is up significantly in the 90% compared to in previous elections where collection rates were low. So we can also expect that will also have an impact on turnout. I guess the only red herring is very clearly the scarcity in naira and scarcity in fuel. That can prevent people from getting from point A to point B, particularly people who want to vote, but also people who want to observe elections and people who want to, journalists who want to report in remote places. We worry that may be one issue that as we don't have a clear answer for how it will play out.
Yeah, you mentioned something about a reference to an interim government, which has been something that's been very disturbing to Nigerians. And do you think, or will you say from what you have observed so far, that the clouds have dissipated over the process?
I mean, I don't think the clouds ever dissipate on any red black swan events. But as the way we see, at least on the field, what observers are telling us is that there are no indications that that's the case. It looks like elections will go on as planned, on schedule. Right now, we don't see any indications that that's the case.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Luatubi. Mr. McMahon, I don't know how long you've been around there, but maybe you will have noticed that preparations are in top gear, the training of election officers, movement of logistics and all that. From your own experience of covering elections in other states, are you impressed, or what are the impressions you have about what is going on in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. If you ask me about postponement of elections in Nigeria, I have had the opportunity to taste it in 2019 and in the election between President Buhari and Jonathan. At that time, President Buhari was on CPC. The election was also postponed. I quite remember very well. So postponing an election in Nigeria is not new. But I think that the preparations so far, for my interaction with INEC on pre-election preparations, has given me a solid understanding that there won't be any postponement. But the last postponement, I was asleep at 12 o'clock in my hotel at Adamawa when the postponement came. I didn't even hear about it until the morning somebody called me that the elections have been postponed. So much as I have faith in what the Electoral Commissioner himself, Professor Yakubu, has said, he said this right from Chatham House in UK, I said it on several platforms in Nigeria here 3 days ago when he met observers. He said the same thing. And my interaction with the various electoral officials give me a clear understanding that the elections are going to come on. Because after all, we learn from our past mistakes. So whatever mistakes must have occurred, INEC is such an organization that must be able to learn from its past. Like all human beings, errors made, we are able to perfect it in the future. And I think also that INEC has done well because there's a survey report which says that Nigerians, 60% of Nigerians have trust in INEC. That is very good. That is awesome. And we must congratulate them and continue to exhibit that traits that gave Nigerians a set of mind to tell them that they have 60% trust in them in the polls. So going by this, I don't foresee any postponement. More so on the field, materials, both essential and non-essential material, election materials have been distributed across lines. There were some few tricks that were coming out on some deployment of materials as far as transport was concerned because of the rumor that there was scarcity of fuel. Because many of these private hauliers, transporters, were going to need fuel. But it has been resolved, and many of them have gotten their fuel and have moved at least from state level to local government area. And tonight, it will move from local government area to electoral area or ward for onward transportation to polling stations by tomorrow morning for elections to commence. So the aspect of fuel, which was a threat, is no more the case, as has been the case. And let me also mention another threat of cash, because like Nigeria, like many other African countries, transactions are conducted in cash. So you hire a driver, you hire people who will offload the materials, you have to pay all of them in cash. But the learned professor and chairman of INEC has assured us that the governor of Bank of Ghana has assured him
of Nigeria.
Central Bank of Nigeria, thank you very much for the correction, has assured him that he will give him the needed cash funds to be able to meet his obligations in the election process.
Yeah,
so for me, I think that INEC is prepared. And let me add, election is not only a DD matter. Election is a process. And the process began with registration of voters, picking your voter card, etc. There were deadlines, they were extended, there were deadlines, they were extended. So people have been given ample time to collect their PVCs, which gives room for people to have the opportunity to cast their votes. So if all these things have been done, and rightly so, I don't foresee any postponement of elections.
The INEC chairman has mentioned it on more than a few occasions, how Nigeria has about 87 million voters and how that is maybe even more than the voters roll in all the 14 African and West African countries put together. When you look at the magnitude of of the system, do you sometimes have the fear that maybe this is the reason why sometimes we don't get it right in Nigeria? Yes, Mr. Manu.
Well, Nigeria is a federal state, mind you. And when we say a federal state, it means the number of states have some form of autonomy to do certain things. And even at the federal level, things are done according to states. So the 36 states have all resident electoral commissioners. They have their warehouses where goods are received, etc. So I looked at the states as pockets of countries in Africa. Like Ghana, perhaps, is the equivalent of Lagos State in terms of population and size. So we must manage it according to state levels and then later bring them together to get the federal results, as is done in the United States at the federal level, etc. So I don't foresee that as any hitch in deployment, in resource transmission, in everything, in security matters, etc. Because states are unique and they have their unique characteristics that bother them on electoral matters, on security matters, etc. So the INEC must deal with them with assistance from the federal government according to state by state by state. And then it is brought together to get Nigeria as a whole. So that's my understanding. So it's not only that the numbers are fearsome, but if you break the numbers down into states, they become manageable. And if you break the states down into the 774 local government areas, they also become manageable. Then ultimately to the 176,000 plus polling units, we are ready to go.
Yeah, Dr. Luwatobi, there are now about 176, over 176,000 polling units in Nigeria. And, INEC have to break up some of them where it's thought the population will be difficult to manage. But that has created another problem, such that a lot of people now are not familiar with. Do you think the process that INEC has put in place to educate people on how to access their polling units and all that, do you think it has been enough? They have done enough so that there will not be confusion at the polling units on Saturday?
It's a great question. I think that the short answer is I don't think that the voter education in that regard has been sufficient. I don't think that every voter whose polling unit has either changed or been merged has gotten at least a text notification that's the case, even though there's been some general announcements. But as with everything in Nigeria, I think on election day people will figure it out, and Nigerians, especially because of the level of motivation to vote, Nigerians will go out to vote. I think my bigger concern is some of the results that we saw from the mock voting that happened on February 4, where INEC did a mock exercise. We saw that at least 2% of the polling of the BVAS machines didn't work at all. And we saw a lot of cases where people who were registered in 2011, their names wouldn't show up and the BVAS wouldn't accredit them. So I worry that if that has not been fixed on election day, quite a number of people will be disenfranchised, and that may constitute a little bit more of a risk than people just not being able to identify where their polling units are.
Yeah, okay. I would like you to take this as well. INEC too said 87 million registered voters have collected their PVC. And if you compare the figure with those for previous years, you will notice maybe improvements in the percentage of collection. And but in spite of that, people still, if you go to the social media, people still complaining that they were not able to access their PVCs. And recently we read the report of maybe some PVCs being found in the bush and all that. How do you think the commission should improve the process?
I think that first off, I have to say that credit has to go to the fact that the amount of time that was provided this time around with the Electoral Act for continuous voters registration to start early, and for INEC to have ample time to prepare and print voters' cards. I think in a lot of ways, having a little bit more time, a slightly more, a larger time lag, was responsible in a lot of ways for us having about 93% collection this time, as compared to 81% in 2015 and 87% in 2019. However, I still think that anyone who, those of us in civil society, have had to advocate time and again for the deadline for collection to be shifted, because a lot of people went to INEC offices and queued for days, queued for hours, and still couldn't get their voters card. So it's not their fault that INEC did not get their acts together and have those voters cards ready and have a seamless process for distributing those cards. Obviously, we also think that there were malfeasances around some cards, miraculously disappearing and being found in the bushes and things like that, that perhaps account for a good chunk of the 7% that was not collected. So yeah, certainly INEC needs to do a better job of this. In other climes, you would have a very well functioning postal system that once you register, in a few weeks, you can expect that your voter's card or your driver's license or whatever will be posted to your home, and you don't have to go queue for hours. And the only time you have to go to the office to physically collect it is if, for some reason, the few people whose cards don't get to them through the postal system. So I think that that's one area that INEC could definitely improve, and also giving people an opportunity. Well, I guess INEC didn't allow people collect by proxy, but there were cases where people collected by proxy. So you had cases that people's cards were collected for them without their consent. So I think there are quite a few things that INEC can improve on in the future, but we have to say that 93% is a pass mark.
Yeah, you mentioned the postal service, and that sounds simple enough to do. And why is it difficult for Nigerians to do something like that?
Well, I think the first thing INEC would throw at you is the cost. But since Nigeria has a postal service, but then we have to go back to the question of whether or not the postal service itself works. We have to go back to the question of the informality of the Nigerian system and address system, the way people's home addresses are classified. So if you're in a place like the US or Canada, for example, even if you have a home that is a boys' quarters to someone else's home, that house is a legal resident that has its own postal address, so the thing can get to you. But in Nigeria, where you have urban slums where there are 10,000 people, 100 people living in one building, it's hard to get postal system to get something to each and every one of them. So there's a lot of other things that we may need to reform in the process of trying to get things.
Yeah, thank you very much. Mr. Manu, while preparing your trip to Nigeria, you must have been concerned about reports of insecurity and all that. In some parts of the country, maybe we had cases of banditry and all that, but of most concern is maybe in the southeast, where the kind of insurgency or agitation, political agitation is going on, that has resulted in attacks on the facilities of election officers and even the police. But INEC has said they were going to conduct elections. Are you satisfied? Are you convinced that they can achieve this?
Well, I have seen some video of destruction of materials, polling station materials, tents, etc., in some parts of Nigeria, which is very, very unfortunate. At the same time, I have seen on television the Nigerian Navy responding that they will maintain law and order for the stability of Nigeria as far as the elections are concerned. And I was fascinated by that story from the Nigerian Navy, and that they were saying that every creek that has human beings on and that are expected to vote they will have their men and women go and protect the citizenry to have the ability and permission to exercise their franchise. I believe what INEC is saying. Well, the difficulty rather is that when people get scared, they will not go to the polling station at all. That's a different scenario. But putting up another tent, they will do. But the voters getting scared and having seen these kind of videos may be tempted not to go and risk their lives. So that's something that needs to be looked at in that parts of Nigeria where these things are occurring.
Yeah, okay.
Again, there are even some 420 polling stations where nobody registered. I think that's something that we must bring to the fore. According to INEC, people refuse to register in those polling stations. So there are no registration at all, though the places have been located and given unique identification as polling units. So we need to look at that. That aside, it is not the first time I am hearing about the activities of Boko Haram and its threats in Africa, and therefore we should give in or should not conduct elections. I've been to Kenya, where the Al-Shabaab was threatening Ewa, and recently in Somalia, elections were conducted. So Nigeria, with its brave men and women in the security forces, and who have promised that the stability and democracy of the country is quite important to them. We must give them their support. And when I say support, you know, the military or the security does not operate. They do not operate in isolation. They need information from the citizen. We are all tools to assist them get the right information to be able to deliver. So I think that I will use this your noble platform to tell Nigerians and others that any little thing about security and terror that they hear about, they must report to the appropriate security organization to enable them to take charge, because they have promised that they will take charge and deliver and allow people the right to go and have their votes.
Yeah, okay.
So Boko Haram or these matters, they are a threat not only to Nigeria, but the entire West African society. Recently, if you go to Burkina Faso, they have moved to the extent that it has created a lot of Burkina citizens moving into Ghana to seek refuge. So we must take the bull by the horn and look at it as an African problem, as an ECOWAS problem, and deal with it. But I'm happy that when INEC met FEC, Federal Executive Council, they also promised to assist, deliver security to enable the elections go on.
So we take a break now, and when we come back, we'll continue the discussion. Yeah, thank you.
It's not possible for PDP to take over in 2023. Is it not better for we to prefer PDP to come back to embezzle and spread the money outside?
My focus is person, not ethnic, not party for now.
It's been 8 years under the All Progressive Congress. A new general election is imminent, and do we expect a change in government to the other three top political parties? We're here on the streets of Abuja to ask residents. I'm Titi Lokwe for Premium Times.
My focus is person, not ethnic, not party for now. My focus, my interest is that leader that will change the story of an average Nigerian. That leader that will make food available for the common Nigerian. That leader that will make the atmosphere conducive for a northerner to go to the east and do his business comfortably and go back to his house for a southerner to go to the north and do his business and go back to the south peacefully. It is that leader I am interested in, not where you come from.
It's not possible for PDP to take over in 2023.
Why?
The political game is this. Both APC and PDP, they are sitting on the dining table. PDP have eaten the goods of this country for 16 years. The other side of the political family is APC. They are in for 8 years. If there are anything to go by, they would like to remain there for another 8 years. Simply because, if you check, this cross-carpeting the campaign from here and there is vice versa. That is the major reason why APC, they will not like to relinquish power to PDP.
Well, that's a very nice question, but I am not God, I'm not a prophet. But I believe, because why did I say I will believe that PDP will still come? You know, during the era of the return of democracy in 1999 by Olusegun Obasanjo, things were not too bad like this. Yaradua came, things were trying to be very, very good because he was very, very humble. Then good luck now came to power. Them now, people say that they stole money, but I like their method of stealing the money because as they are stealing the money is still going out. The masses were benefiting. But this administration, they not say they are totally bad. They are good in some other ways, but they claim to fight corruption. And some people that they form something that is called whistleblower. So sometimes they blow the whistle. I don't have a strong backup. They can still arrest you and you'll be affected negatively. So now they claim not to be fighting, not to be embezzling our funds. But still, they are embezzling it, but in a silent way. Is it not better for we to prefer PDP to come back to embezzle and spread the money outside?
I have not seen anything that PDP will be able to take over. No. They have not done and they have not put their house in order.
What better thing did APC achieve when there was no platform? The man that is the president is overwhelmed with what he saw in Nigeria. The platform is what I mean. See, that is my core issue presently as a Nigerian. The platform to work. Because if the platform to work was good, he would have been better off. But the platform was not there for him to work. And that platform is what we are supposed to discuss as Nigerians. We must come down to terms and work like that. If there is no better platform, the next person we are going to have will equally do the same thing. He cannot be better off than Buhari.
No, it's not possible. Don't go there. Don't go there. Don't go there. So PDP can't take over because PDP.
Yeah, welcome back from the break. We've been discussing the preparations that the Electoral Commission and indeed the entire Nigerians have made concerning the 2023 general elections. And my guest has been Dr. Oluwatobi of CJID and Mr. McMahon of Democratic Union of Africa. Before the break, Mr. McMahon had spoken about this security environment, and Dr. Oluwatobi, is there something you would like to add to that, especially given the information we received today, the news today that INEC has postponed the senatorial election in Enugu State, where a candidate was assassinated just I mean, is there something that you had to the observations that have been made about the general nature of insecurity in West Africa, and then specifically about the situation in Nigeria?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I think that the use of violence to suppress voter turnout is a trick that is everywhere in democracies everywhere around the world, and the actual violence or the threat of violence, many times it's intended to create fear and to suppress votes, and I think we have to be vigilant of that. And whereas it is true that there are security threats, and like Mr. McMahon has just said, Boko Haram, for example, is something that is a problem that we are all dealing with as Africans, particularly around the Lake Chad quadrangle and a little beyond, going as far as Burkina Faso and the Sahel. But the reality is that, you know, it's always been there and people go about their regular business. And elections should not be an extraordinary situation where people have a heightened fear of violence. And one of the things that we are very so just during the week, IPOB in the East came out to say that, at least the main faction came out to say that that elections should go on, that they will not cause violence in the Southeast. But we all know that historically turnout has always been very low in the Southeast, partly because of violence or threat of violence. So I guess the point I'm making is that people should also be vigilant and to fact check things that they see. If they say that there is something, election is cancelled somewhere, or there's violence somewhere, fact check before you act on that basis. So, for example, we at CGID, for example, have deployed observers to various states, and in collaboration with CODE, we have about 20,000 observers who are on the field to help with fact check. So if something comes up in a particular state, that there's a news of something, we can go on the field to go fact check whether or not it's true, because we know that a veritable tool for voter suppression will always be the threat of violence. And the police has assured us that 400,000 security personnel have been deployed, both from the police and the DSS. And that's about 2.5 per polling units. So there's a lot of security personnel out there. INEC has deployed the election security management system, which we hope will also further enhance ability to report on violence or the threat of violence and to verify such situations. So I think that by way of preparedness, things are in top gear, and that people should be vigilant and not be disenfranchised by fake news.
Yeah, thank you very much. Aside from this phenomenon of insecurity that we have been speaking about, another OGA that is troubling to democracy in Africa is, or let me just say in Nigeria, the sector of vote buying. I mean, are you familiar with, or is it something that you came across in Nigeria? I mean, going about observing election in Africa, is it something that is of concern everywhere in Africa, or is it just peculiar to us in Nigeria? Vote buying.
Well, thank you very much. Vote buying is serious in Africa, and Nigeria cannot escape from that. But I am happy to note that in the last 2 or 3 state governorship elections in Nigeria, I saw on Channels TV some people being arrested for being given money, if you happen to see it. And the EFCC were supposed to go and prosecute them to serve as a deterrent to others. But what does the law say? I think we must put up the necessary laws to prevent vote buying in any form, because they tend to make democracy unattractive to prospective aspirants and candidates who they will not have the wherewithal, but may have the magic as far as the policy and manifesto and delivery are concerned. So we must not always rely on money as a way of giving out who should be our leader. So vote buying is seriously against multi-party democracy in any form. And countries, including Nigeria, Ghana, and the rest, must come up with appropriate laws, severe sanctions that can be executed, because there are many laws on our statutes which are not executed, and some of them on vote buying are included. It's not only vote buying, but even cheating. Cheating is giving people bags of rice, bags of maize, etc., to enable them vote for you. And sometimes even clothing. So we must try as much as possible to avoid that. But if people go and queue from 6 a.m. and it's a long queue up to 2 o'clock, it must be fed. So if a political party takes up that challenge and tries to feed people in the queue, are we going to call that treating or vote buying to that extent? Because our economies are not so good enough for people to be able to afford 3 meals a day. So in the queue, depending on how long they stay, people can bribe them with food, and that can change their mindset on who to vote for. So these are gray areas that we have to look at. So it's not only cash, but treating.
Dr.
I think I'm going to add
yes,
to that. I think
yes,
I'm just going to
because,
say to
let
that.
me just frame it this way.
Yeah.
Yes, you add to what he has said, but EFCC and ICPC, they've said they are deploying officials to the polling units to maybe look out for guys who are trying to sell or who are trying to buy votes. I want to ask, how do you think how effective do you think that can get? And I think it was just this morning too, we had the reports from Rivers State too, where a federal lawmaker, was said to have been arrested with close to $500,000. And do you think the security agencies can arrest this situation? Or how else do you think we should address the problem?
I think first of all, we should solve the problem of poverty. And we should tackle poverty headlong, because insofar as, just like Mr. McMahon has said, that people are poor and hungry and they are staying in line for a long time, they deserve to eat and someone needs to feed them. And if political parties are doing that, you shouldn't blame the people who are, you shouldn't blame the poor person who just sees a means to get a meal. And I guess the point I was also going to make to that point is that EFCC and INEC should not scapegoat, poor, defenseless people. You can go for the parties themselves. You can sanction the political parties themselves. You can arrest the party agents that are caught selling, and paying with monies buying votes. You can arrest those people themselves, and if you do that, scapegoat those ones. Perhaps if there was nobody giving you money, then there will be nobody to collect money. Everybody will just go and exercise their franchise. So I think the key thing I want to make here is that we can educate people not to sell their votes, but we shouldn't criminalize people going to exercise their franchise and just being offered something and taking it. That's not a criminal offense, but the people the political parties are the ones we should be going after.
Yeah, but the point you made is that at what point does it become criminal? When because if you allow some parties that can to feed their voters, one of those that can't, poor people, and it's also poses this cock and egg thing. And we spoke about poverty. But if you continue to get, as long as you continue to fail in the election process, it will delay and detain us in that poverty. So how do we solve all this?
I would be lying if I told you I had the silver bullet or the perfect answer to that question. I think the point is just, and Mr. McMahon made that point before, that if we scapegoat a few powerful people, not the poor downtrodden person who collected 5,000 naira, and then you go and fine him for billions or millions of naira, but then the person who was caught with $500,000, if we scapegoat people like that, perhaps we will start to move closer towards a policy where that is a little cleaner. But the truth is that we cannot eradicate it everywhere in the world. There is some form of vote buying. whether it is by what do they call them now? Political action committee people donating to political parties, or political parties, doing policies for lobbyists. Everywhere in the world, there is some sort of organized influence of money in democracies. So we can't altogether shy away from that reality of human existence.
Yeah. Okay. You are going to have
Yes, let me also add that, look, we should not take the voters for granted. I think voters are becoming discerning to the extent that he will take your money, but not necessarily go and vote for you. Yeah. And there's a CDD Ghana polls in which the respondents said, well, they will take your money, but that cannot force them to vote for you. They're hoping 65% plus. So taking the money is a different thing, and going into a ballot box, a cubicle, which makes your voting secret. Yeah. So Nigeria must take people's phones, smartphones from them when they are going into the cubicle. Because some vote buyers insist that when you thumbprint, take a picture and bring it to me and come and take your money.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the CDD polls said that over 65% of respondents, they will take the money, but they will vote according to their conscience.
Yeah. So, Dr.
And let me add, that is why incumbent governments have lost elections in this sub-region, including Nigeria. I think incumbent governments have the resources. So how then did they lose elections? Okay, how then did they lose elections? They were able to pay money to the voters, all right. But the voters are discerning and could not be bought. We must...
Yeah, Dr. Lado, from what I can deduce from what he said is that, the answer could be in just trying to ensure the secrecy of the votes. Is that, do you agree with that?
I think that that's a lot of it. I think that just being able to make sure that vote buyers cannot enforce their will by force. They cannot enforce their will is removing some power from them. And if you take power away from them and you give the power, you retain the power with the people. I think that's great progress.
Thank you very much. We spoke about voter education too. In relation to a particular subject, but generally, voter education under this process in Nigeria. What is your impression on it? Who do you think should take greater responsibility to educate the voters about the voting right, about their rights, and all that?
I think that voter education has been somewhat decent. This electoral cycle, there's been a lot of work between civil society, INEC, National Orientation Agency, and indeed, these are the organizations together with the media that ought to collaborate to make sure that we protect our democracy and that people have the right information that they need. So I think that that's functioning to some degree. Obviously, like everything else, it could get better. But I would say that I'd give it a B+.
Yeah, let me just ask you the last question for me. The last question for you: the various innovations, technological innovations like beavers, INEC, and all that. Do you think INEC has convinced you that they can manage these innovations and get result in cleaner elections from this exercise?
I think that based on what's happened in the 3 off-cycle elections where they've used these technologies, the beavers and the IREV, I think that we've seen that ostensibly they helped make the votes more transparent. But we've also seen from the ruling on Osun State that there was a lot of overvoting despite the beavers, and that raises fresh doubts and fresh concerns. And also the mock voting that was done also showed some gaps in the results that came out from the IREV and the results that were showed on the field.
So evidence that we've seen recently is showing us that these technologies are not yet being optimally utilized to their full capacity to protect the vote. And I think that's an ongoing struggle and ongoing quest for further accountability, but we've made progress.
Yeah. Mr. Manu, you've, I mean, this is the seventh cycle of elections since 1979 in Nigeria. Nigeria has never had, so many election cycles, regular election cycles in its history. Now, you mentioned that you have covered a few of them. You've observed them. Now, do you see evidence of improvement in the way we conduct election in Nigeria? Are you seeing, and are you satisfied with that pace of development progress?
Thank you. Certainly, there has been a marked improvement in the way elections are conducted in Nigeria. Election management bodies are supposed to organize elections based on one. Key elements are transparency and openness, show of professionalism on the part of the officials, adequate planning and preparation. All these elements go to make the elections acceptable to the parties involved, so that at the end of it all, the winners and the losers will look at Nigeria, its stability and its future development. This is what democracy is all about. And I think from the steps that INEC has taken, in conjunction with all Nigerians, the House of Representatives, the Senate that passed the various bills into law, and for President Buhari to give the necessary assent for BVAS and IREV, etc., to come into being or into execution is a great thing that has happened to electoral process in Nigeria. Because BVAS and IREV will make the elections BVAS will identify who could really vote, that it is your vote, and that nobody can come and misrepresent other people as it used to be in the past. Okay? The identity of the individual is well taken care of through the biometric system on the BVAS. Then the IREV would also allow anybody interested to know the results from the various polling stations have not been tampered with. These are essentially transparent things that we need in elections to make winner and loser satisfied with the results, so that peace and tranquility would remain post-election for Nigeria to flourish. So I think that I've seen various innovations in Nigeria's elections over time, and the election closes at 2, which gives enough time for the tallying and announcements from the polling station to the ward and to the LGA to be done. The role of the media, which is also critical, because they will have to give the sound bites to the electorate, has also been amplified enough. They have been trained, educated by the INEC and other civil society groups to be able to understand the nitty-gritty of what it entails on BVAS, IREV, and other innovations introduced into the law. I think this was going to enhance the transparency of the elections and the speed with which the results will come out.
Yeah.
Nigeria is doing well.
Now, I will ask Dr. Oluwatobi for his final remarks, and I want you to build it around the subject that he has discussed about the progress in the electoral process, and whether this progress reinforce your own confidence in the prospect of democracy in Nigeria, as your parting remarks.
I think that Nigeria has certainly come a long way since 1999. There was a time when elections would be held, and we clearly knew that all the numbers were going to be written at the back end, and whoever the powers that be wanted to declare would win the election. I think that Nigeria has made a lot of progress since then, and the truth is that the incidence of high incidence of vote buying is because people cannot just write the numbers anymore. They now know that they have to win at the poll, or at least have a significant popularity or mandate of the people to be able to even have whatever chance at manipulating numbers if they will still succeed at that. But and this time around, we've also seen further progress with the use of technology to increase transparency. So I think altogether, everything coming together gives me stronger confidence in Nigeria's democracy. I think that Nigeria's democracy is maturing, and our electoral process is evidence of that.
Yeah, Mr. Manu, in maybe 30 seconds, your own parting words.
I would say kudos to Nigeria, to its citizens, INEC, and the entire federal executives for the bold steps they have taken to make Nigeria elections transparent, accurate, and open. And I expect that these elections, the hula baloo that always engulf post-elections, is going to lower, so that peace and tranquility, which whoever wins will need to set sailing, to tackle the numerous problems, the economy, security, jobs, etc., will be given the high momentum it demands. So let us give peace a chance. Let us go to the polling station in numbers, the voter turnout in numbers, and let us remain peaceful. And INEC will give us a peaceful elections. Thank you.
We say Bala Blue now, not Bala Blue in Nigeria.
Thank you so much, Mr. McMahon. Thank you, Dr. Oluwatobi. And
it's Bala Blue, but
this is where we wrap it up today. Tomorrow is election day, and we are going to spend more time with you, providing you election updates on this platform and on our social media and other handles. So this is Premium Times election special. Good evening, and thank you.
We should stop looking at women as they are supposed to be in the other room.
Women have to develop more interest in politics.
I prefer female having 15%. That's enough for them.
Women, they don't speak one voice.
Since our return to democracy, there has been low representation of women in the parliament. A recent report by Premium Times shows that only 5% of women are vying for parliamentary seats at the federal level. What do you think about women and their representation in governance and in the parliament? We're on the streets of Abuja today to ask the residents what they think about this. My name is Queen Esther Iranisi for Premium Times.
No, to me, the women are the blame. To me. And you know, this is Africa. We should stop. I'm trying to generalize the blame now. We should stop looking at women as they are supposed to be in the other room or in the kitchen and things like that. Women are doing great things. Women are good managers. So if women themselves, I'm coming to women themselves now, if women themselves can support themselves for politics, I believe they can do well. I believe so. Like this woman from, I think, Liberia, something Eileen, I forgot his name. He did well. Yes, he did well in that country. Prime Minister of the UK was a woman, and he did well. They did very well. So if we can bring women into politics in Nigeria, and let's give them a chance, I believe they can do well because they are good managers.
5% is not enough. At least it should go up to 30%. But at the same time, we should not limit it or maybe in party constitution, you said that a certain percentage must go to women, this position must go to women, or that thing, it will create confusion. But just that women have to develop more interest in politics. Then we now, the delegates, the party members should understand that women should also be given opportunities too. I think women's attitude to politics is not encouraging yet in Nigeria. Because what you consider from what an average young girl, young lady, her understanding of life and everything, you see that we are still coming into the picture of politics. So with time it will improve.
I am looking forward to them. they should make it 15%. It's enough for the female. I prefer female having 15%. That's enough for them. The female is a part and parcel of the government, and government is a part and parcel of the females.
Yeah, I think somehow, but I don't blame the National Assembly people or others. Women, they don't speak one voice. Can you remember, there's a last election, they won the presidential election, the one that passed, the one that contested. How many votes do you have? Okay, now, if let me say, okay, the woman don't have people to vote for him. What a woman? They know this person stand as a woman, want to rule Nigeria. As a president, why women not team up themselves to vote for the woman? You do not know how many votes the woman have? I don't need to tell you. Everybody knows. It's everything. What do I say that a woman has to speak one voice? We cannot do it without women. Okay, now you see election now, someone will come out. They say, okay, this person is the leader they want by vote. You see women, instead of them to vote their own fellow women. I know they can vote for a man, it's true. Yeah? But they don't vote for fellow man, they prefer to go to vote for a man. Is it me, woman cannot deliver? Woman can deliver than men. If you look at the ministry today, a minister, they want to have women. You know what they are doing. They do everything, they deliver well than men.
Women in politics in Nigeria has been something that, well, it's not encouraging, but I want the Nigerian women to sit up just like Aisha. There's one woman called Aisha Yusufu. She has been the one that has been advocating for women. If women come out, if you see the total number of votes we do have more is more of the women. If women can come out like this and vote, if one of them come out to stand, everybody will vote for them. But they're always scared. That is why the men stand the ground. Though in Nigeria we believe that women are the tail while the men are the head. But in the side of God, everybody is equal. It's just in the administration. But we need more of the women because I know the women are doing well. Somebody like Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is representing us very well. I want other women to borrow a leaf from her. And somebody like Aisha Yusuf and the likes of others too that are representing. Just yesterday, they crowned one Nigerian lady as a brigadier general in the U.S. Army. She's a lady. So Nigerian women, please come and contest for this presidency. It's not a man thing. Come out and challenge us, the men. Let's see what we can do also.
For me, if we want to take the statistics of the population of the women in Nigeria or in the global space, but we are talking about Nigeria. In Nigeria, the ratio of women is higher than that of the men. So I think the women should call for a national conference, talk to themselves, sensitize themselves, and vote themselves into power. Because I know in Rivers State there are so many women contesting for House of Rep, contesting for Senate, contesting for even governorship in various states across the country. So they should call for a national conference and encourage, sensitize themselves before even 2023 election, so that they should channel their votes supporting the women folks, so that they can have over 5-10%. So they have the powers in their hand, to do the right thing and get themselves.